Over on Jaguar Eater 7, a new baseball video is out. In this video, we talk about the player on the Cincinnati Reds in the 1980s who almost had his career destroyed because the Reds did something really stupid when it came to his injury. Click the card in the upper right corner to watch. And now, on with our feature presentation. You all remember Spygate, right? You all remember what happened during that, when Bill Belichick was accused of having the New England Patriots videotaping the signals of the New York Jets, with the team being fined $250,000, Bill Belichick being fined $500,000, and the team losing their first-round pick in the 2008 NFL Draft. And you probably remember what happened in 2019, when there was yet another Spygate surrounding the Patriots and Bill Belichick, when a crew member of the Patriots, by the name of David Montillo, was caught spying on the Bengals from the Browns press box, and the team was fined $1.1 million as a result, with the team also losing a third-round pick and losing the right to have any production crews in a stadium for a year. Belichick is a great head coach, and you can make the legitimate argument that he is the greatest head coach of all time. However, the fact that his team has been punished twice for spying on the opponent, when no other team has been punished by losing a draft pick with that since 2007, is definitely noteworthy. Which is what makes this scandal all the more bizarre. Because while you definitely know about Bill Belichick being accused of spying on the opposition to gain a competitive advantage, you might not know about the time that Belichick was the one doing the accusing. He was the accuser, and not the accused. Because in 1991, after a game against the Cincinnati Bengals, Belichick took the bizarre approach of accusing the Bengals of spying on them, which is hysterical when you realize the complete lack of evidence surrounding the claim, and when you realize just how the Bengals were doing that season. Because this is the story behind what has to be, considering the circumstances, the strangest and quite possibly the dumbest controversy of Bill Belichick's entire head coaching career. Before I talk about the actual incident in question and the comments made by Belichick that were insanely bizarre, we need some context to understand what happened in the first meeting between the teams. It's September 15th, 1991. It's week 3 of the NFL season, and we've got an AFC Central battle between the two Ohio rivals in the Cincinnati Bengals and the Cleveland Browns. Now, Cleveland was coming off of a great game against the New England Patriots the previous week, where offensively, they were firing on all cylinders, and could do absolutely no wrong. In a 20-0 shutout win over the New England Patriots, which was Belichick's first ever win as a head coach, they played a near-flawless game on offense. Not once did they turn the ball over. They dominated the time of possession, holding onto the ball for nearly 38 minutes of game time. Quarterback Bernie Kosar was amazing and efficient back there under center, going 15 for 22 with 187 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and a great passer rating of 124.6, which was the first time in nearly 2 years, since Week 9 of the 1989 season against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, that he had a passer rating of 110 or better. The team just about doubled New England's total yardage, converted roughly 50% of their third down conversions, and were in complete control from start to finish. Meanwhile, the Bengals' defense entering this game was, well, not good. In fact, it was terrible, and that's putting it lightly. They entered this game against the Browns with an 0-2 record, which was a far cry from their consistently good play atop the AFC Central throughout the past half-decade. And their defense was awful in those games, as they lost 45-14 to the Denver Broncos in Week 1, and 30-7 to the Houston Oilers in Week 2. That's 75 points allowed, or 37.5 points per game, and was the worst defense in the league through 2 games. For some perspective on how bad that was, if the Browns lost this game 48-0, the Bengals still would have allowed more points than the Browns through 3 weeks. It was that bad. So you have an offense that's playing relatively well against a defense that looked like they had no idea what they were doing. You would think that the Browns would have a great offensive showing, right? However, as you've been able to tell from these highlights, when the two teams actually met on the field, that couldn't be further from the truth. Now, the good news for the Browns was that they prevailed, as in front of their home fans at Cleveland Municipal Stadium, they won 14-13, with kicker Matt Stover hitting the game-winning field goal from 45 yards out with 4 seconds left. However, the Browns looked downright terrible offensively. They won in spite of their offense, not because of it. Against the team that was allowing 37.5 points per game and was seemingly allowing opponents into the end zone at will, the Browns scored no touchdowns the entire game, with the 14 points coming off of a safety in the second quarter and 4 field goals by Stover, with the kicks coming from 30, 42, 38, and 45 yards out. Bernie Kosar, after having a great game under center the previous week, was poor in this one, going 20 for 41, completing less than 50% of his passes while getting sacked 3 times, throwing no touchdowns, and posting a passer rating of 62.8, which was half of what he posted the previous week. Running back Eric Metcalf got nothing going, picking up just 7 yards on 6 carries, and it's not like the other running backs were much better. Only once in the contest did the Browns have a run go longer than 10 yards, and that was when Kevin Mack had the longest run of the game, which was 11 yards. That's it. With the exception of a 21-yard catch by Webster Slaughter, the Browns had no plays go for 20 or more yards. Whereas they didn't turn the ball over once the previous week, they turned it over twice in this one, while going just 5 for 17 on third down, converting less than 30% of the time, and while picking up just 3 yards per carry on the dot, with 84 rushing yards on 28 attempts. In Bill Belichick's words, this game was a catfight, where it seemed like no matter what the Browns tried on offense, and no matter what wrinkle they put in, the Bengals surprisingly had an answer for it. Why was that the case? Well, fortunately, we have our answer, since the teams were set to meet a second time since they were divisional opponents. Because in Week 10, on November 3rd, the teams would meet again, only this time in Cincinnati. And Belichick knew what he had to do in order to have a more efficient offense this time. He knew that the only way his Browns were going to have a shot in the world at playing well offensively was to do something that they didn't do last time. And that was to close off practice, because it was clear that the Bengals were spying on him and his team. Seriously. The reason for the Browns playing poorly on offense in Week 3 wasn't because the Bengals put in a great game plan, or because Kosar was inefficient, or because the offensive line didn't do its job, or because you dropped a fair amount of passes, or because the team put the ball on the ground and was careless with the football, or because people maybe overlooked Cincinnati's defense after how they started the season off. Nope. It was because the Bengals were spying on them. You heard that right. Bill Belichick was accusing the Bengals of spying. Said Belichick leading up to the Week 10 battle, "I thought there were some very unusual plays in that game. I guess that's the best way I could put it. Some things happened that I would just have a hard time rationalizing. Namely, due to that fact, and also the fact that we're going to be working on some things this week that maybe people haven't seen before, I'm going to reluctantly close the practices this week for the Cincinnati game." He added, "As far as red flags go, I just can't explain some of the things that happened in that game. And so I think I feel a lot more confident and comfortable with the situation being the way I just described it. Really, that's all I want to say about it. There were some things that happened in that game that I just don't understand." Afterwards, when pressed further on the matter, Belichick said, "I'll go by the record. What I said is what I believe. I'm not going to go into any details about it." So just to understand where we are, Belichick accused the Bengals of spying. For some reason, did not report it to the league. Just decided to bring it up now close to 2 months after the first game instead of right after the fact. Even though he knew right after the Week 3 meeting that something was fishy. And when asked about what evidence he had or why he believed it, said absolutely nothing, and said, "I said what I said." His logic was, essentially, We ran plays we thought would be successful, but they weren't, which means it wasn't our fault. It means it was something they did, and it means they must be cheating. And aside from the fact that Belichick seemed to just be talking out of his butt here by accusing the Bengals of cheating, you know it's bad when even the players on the Browns had no idea what the heck their coach was talking about. When the coach is accusing the opposition of cheating, and the players themselves are publicly saying, "Coach, what are you talking about?" That's when you know. Said Pro Bowl defensive tackle Michael Dean Perry, "To tell you the truth, I really don't know what in the world he's talking about. I have no idea why he decided to close practice." The only guy who can answer that question is Bill Belichick, and you know how complicated it can be trying to figure that guy out. More than 30 years later, we're still trying to figure him out. When backup quarterback Todd Philcox was asked about Belichick's comments and was asked if he noticed anything unusual, Philcox said, quite bluntly, "Not really." And Philcox wasn't just a backup quarterback. He played for the Cincinnati Bengals in 1990, so he knew the team like the back of his hand. So if he's saying that nothing funny was happening, you know that had to be the case. And if just about every player on the Browns was confused about just what the heck Bill Belichick was talking about, you can imagine the reaction on the other side from the Bengals when they were accused of spying, which is a pretty heavy accusation. Bengals safety David Fulcher was confused and livid about this, saying, "We don't cheat. I mean, I guess you call cheating looking at film, because we look at the same film that other teams have looked at. We play Cleveland twice a year, and it comes from watching the film and knowing what that team does each time you play them. And that's all it's been. It's been like that for the longest, and it's not going to change. Bengals spies? Why are there Bengals spies when you play a team well? There was no spying around here. I mean, we lost to them. So why aren't we saying that they spied on us? They beat us. They won the football game. Hell, you won the football game. So why are you complaining about someone spying on you if you won the game? In Fulcher's eyes, it just made no sense. Head coach Sam Wyche, who you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner, as he is quite the character, said on the matter, "We had a pretty good laugh over that. Our elaborate budget that we have here for our espionage unit is really strained right now. I don't know, but I thought that there were a lot of things that they did well, and our response here was that they did a good job of coaching and a good job of playing. Our thinking is that in every game, we've busted our butts to get ready to play them, and some of it actually worked." Wyche then added in a joking manner, "I don't know how he found out about that. Our espionage budget is really a tight business, top secret stuff. Basically, our informant is within the organization, but I don't want to reveal his name, or her name. I don't know where they practice. I wouldn't know where to tell our spy to go. A lot of things happened in that game where it seemed like they had our number. My response to that was that they did their homework. They did a good job of coaching and preparing their team. I'm sorry Bill didn't give us the same credit, because we did the same thing. We worked our tails off, and we were in the right place, and we were ready for them." And to make matters even stupider, if the Bengals did spy, which, let's be honest, there is no evidence whatsoever that they did spy here, and nothing to even remotely suggest that they did. But let's just assume for the sake of argument that they did. If that's true, then they are the worst spies of all time. They're as bad at spying as Shy Ronnie is at leading a bank hostage, or as bad as SpongeBob is trying to pass a boating test. Want to know what the Bengals' record was entering this game against the Browns? They were, get ready for this, 0-8. They were winless. They had played half the season and had yet to win a game, posting a point differential of -131, which was the second worst in football, and allowing 241 points, or over 30 points per game, which was the worst total in the league. No other team in the league after 8 games had even allowed 200 points, and here were the Bengals allowing 241. If they truly knew how to spy, then they wouldn't be winless. At least when the Patriots spied on the Jets in 2007, they thoroughly destroyed them, winning 38-14 with Tom Brady throwing for 3 touchdowns and no interceptions, while posting a passer rating of 146.6. If you know all the plays that are coming, and you're somehow winless, then you truly are the worst team of all time. Which is what makes it hysterical, that when these teams met the second time, and the Browns closed all practice, thereby preventing the winless Bengals from spying, sure enough, the Bengals won, as they took it 23-21 on a 38-yard field goal in the fourth quarter by Jim Breach, and won it after blocking a 34-yard field goal by Matt Stover at the end of the game. And afterwards, Wyche was all jokes, saying that he wasn't surprised that his team won because they knew everything that was coming, saying, "We're so used to watching everything they do from our minicam. It's in the belt buckle, really, of one of the personnel people. We've used the helmet cam before, but it's not effective because when they turn their heads, they can't see anything. I don't want to reveal the name of the person inside their organization who is giving us the information, because that person still works for them, and we certainly want to use him next year and the year after, as we have for the last 7 years." Bill Belichick did literally everything wrong here in this situation, embarrassing himself and the organization in the process. People criticize the Browns for firing Bill Belichick after 5 seasons because of hindsight and because of what he became in New England. But honestly, can you blame him? I would have fired him after his first season for these comments and how he disgraced the organization. He accused the team of spying, had no evidence whatsoever to back it up that was anything more than a ghost came to me in my sleep and told me, felt strongly about it but didn't even report it to the league or talk about it until 2 months after the game, way past the statute of limitations, and none of his players believed him, with many of them thinking that he had lost his marbles and had gone paranoid. If you're going to discredit the other team by accusing them of cheating, which is a strong accusation, you better have something to back up your claim. And Belichick's claim had about as much weight as a singular electron has, which is to say, none at all. Just feels weird knowing what we know now about Bill Belichick, because 30 years ago, I think it's safe to say that the shoe was on the other foot. Get your official Jaguar Gear 9 merchandise by going to jj9shop.com, and be sure to like and subscribe, as it really helps the channel out a lot. Join me every Wednesday night where we'll play NFL Trivia for cash prizes at 9 p.m. Eastern over on Twitch. To learn more about the history of college football, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 8. To learn more about the history of Major League Baseball, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 7. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.